Perfect. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Building Resilience Among Foreign-Born Military Spouse event at the Foreign-Born Military Spouse Network. My name is Sonia Doris, and I will be your host today. I am the Graphics and Event Coordinator here at FMSN, where our mission is to connect, support, and empower foreign-born military spouses. Additionally, joining me this evening is Caroline, who will be our co-host and will be monitoring all your questions in the chat. Before we begin, allow me to share a little bit about who we are and why this space exists. The Foreign-Born Military Spouse Network was born in response to the experiences of spouses like us, who bring incredible strength, talent, and resilience to our military families. But many face unique challenges, such as navigating immigration and legal systems, overcoming employment barriers, adjusting to military culture, and often are doing it all from far from their native country and support system. We exist because too many foreign-born spouses are quietly struggling. They're highly educated but underemployed. They're fluent in multiple languages but feel unheard. They are caregivers, volunteers, and leaders in our communities, but often invisible to national conversations about military families. FMSN is here to change that. We provide training, resources, mentorship, advocacy, and most importantly, a community. A place to be seen, supported, and empowered. Our goal is to ensure every foreign-born military spouse can thrive economically, emotionally, professionally, no matter where their journey begins. Thank you for being part of this space. Let's build something powerful together. If you have any questions about our network, please feel free to drop them in the chat or send them to us at info@fbmnetwork.com. Caroline will also drop that email address in the chat box. Alrighty. Now I'm excited to welcome our guest speaker. Joining us today is Dr. Dinelia Rosa, the Director of Dean Hope Center for Education and Psychological Services at Teachers College, Columbia University. Dr. Rosa obtained her clinical psychology degree at the Derner Institute, Adelphi University. Prior to her current job, Dr. Rosa worked for 18 years throughout New York City in various clinical and educational settings, predominantly with children and families from diverse backgrounds. She is the president of the New York State American Psychological Association. Dr. Rosa, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time today to share your knowledge with our amazing community. I will now stop sharing my screen so you may share your presentation. I just stopped it.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see
Okay,
it.
beautiful.
Awesome.
Okay, so thank you for this opportunity. What an honor for me to be invited to participate in this unique group with a very specific and wonderful mission. I want to start by thanking all the people, the audience that is here today, because in some way or the other, they're connected with somebody that has served this country or is serving this country. And we are grateful for that. We are in very difficult times now, and in the past, because of your presence and because of your dedication and because of those that have given the maximum sacrifice, we are a country like the one we are right now. So I thank you for that. I see the board here.
Mhm.
Caroline, they're not seeing it? Okay, that's better now. All right. So, first of all, I'm using the same title. Oh, let me go back. I'm using the same title that associates with this organization. A little bit about me. My telephone number is 678-3826. It will be there recorded, of course, and my email in case you would like to contact me in the future. I'm going to present a brief introduction, then I would like to talk about resilience and have like a summary, a conclusion. I'm hoping to talk like for 30 minutes because for me, what I would like to do is open opportunity for people that are here today that would like to share something that was triggered by the conversation. And I find that that is much more useful than presenting and just leaving like 10 minutes for Q&A. All right.
Mhm.
So I pulled this information from your website. You have a wonderful, very rich website. And these are the statistics that you have there. And the one that I want to highlight today, because it's very consistent with my presentation today, is the one in red. 35% of foreign-born spouses report feeling social. I can't see this part here because let me see if I could make it smaller. Yeah, that's better. Feeling of social and cultural isolation, resulting in mental health issues. As a clinical psychologist, that's been my endeavors for more than 30 years now. And is what I would like to highlight here. The challenge with mental health issues is that it's a multifactorial component. It depends of many factors that are not necessarily associated with mental health, but that could result in some challenges in mental health. And some of those are the ones that I'm going to briefly discuss with you, and there are many others that I'm sure you could think of as well. The first one is cultural adjustment, and that what I would like to highlight and spend some time here is in the second bullet. But the first one is adapting to the US norms. It is very challenging to come from another culture that not necessarily is the same, similar to the one of from the United States, and that adaptation happens on a very speed, very quickly. There's no time to understand the pros and cons and the steps because many times that adapting requires moving as fast as you can. There are language barriers. And there's differences in cultural adaptation among family members. So it's not the same. And we know that if it's only a couple, right? You and your spouse, as opposed to a family. And it's not the same if you have two or three children in different developmental stages. It will not be the same if you're dealing with small children as opposed to adolescents, as opposed to almost young adults. And all that becomes a challenge for the person that is running the household in that moment. Now, let's focus on acculturation. What is acculturation? And there's some science behind this concept. There are research that has been done that shows, that talks about the emotional and cognitive challenges that people encounter when dealing with two or more different cultures, right? This is something that has been used a lot with immigrant families. So what are the challenges of coming to a culture like the United States if you're coming from an outside country that is so different from the American culture? What is the impact of those two cultures being held by the same person at the moment, right? And examples of that is how a person's traditions and values that that they brought from their or country of origin are consistent or coming to clash with the cultures and the values of the American culture, um, and the ability of the person to adapt uh, and hold on to the traditional values that they still want to hold on versus the American values that they want to adapt is called acculturation. But I am highlighting that this could be two or more different cultures because we all know that the military itself is a separate culture, right? So what are the challenges that family members and in military servicemen and women encounter in the process of acculturation when dealing with those two or more different cultures? What complicates or makes it more complex is that the last bullet, when I'm mentioning the family members, that acculturation process happens different for each family member. And I'm going to give you an example. The younger you are, the easier you are to adapt to a culture, right? So we have a family that have young children, those children most likely are going to adapt faster than the person that already came as an adult with internalized values of the culture of origin. Um, why? Because I mean, children are going to be exposed through school systems, right, to the culture, to the language, and the adaptation. They have that flexibility. They still have that cognitive flexibility, and the emotional flexibility to absorb and integrate. Very different if this family is dealing with adolescents. Dealing with adolescents, the challenges are complicated by the fact that adolescents are going through a normal developmental stage that we all know about, which is differentiating from the nuclear family and starting to experiment in the outside world, right? With new friends. This is the stage where they feel that they're adults, but they're children for other things. And I want mommy for this, but I don't need mommy for this other thing. So it's quite a struggle during that stage. And it's quite a struggle for parents as well. So if we place that scenario in the acculturation context, we're going to see adolescents that are going to be struggling with wanting to adapt to the American culture because they're observing other teenagers. They are in that process of the normal development stage of wanting to fit in. Of course, they're going to want to integrate those values of adolescence in the American culture as soon as possible and in a faster way. Um, Concrete examples could be dressing more like the American way as opposed to different from the origin culture of origin. Talking, using jargon that probably was not used in the culture, using language that were not used, makeup for young girls, and we could go on and on and on. Those aspects of the acculturation of the adolescent can come into conflict with other family members in the household, right? And that could increase the stress within the family system, that could lead to some mental health issues, right? So now we have a parent that have to try to accommodate to the needs of each family member that is going through their own acculturation process, adaptation process, etc. Isolation. So this is something that is very impactful. Of course, there is a limited in social networks, especially during deployment and relocations. There's limited contact or loss of previous support systems. So one of the things that help us and prevent us from having mental health concerns and issues is having strong support systems. So when we go through a crisis, uh, it's good to have that one family member, if not the whole contact group of family members, or that one good friend, or that one good neighbor that will be there for you when you need it, right? And this is something that we start building since young. Actually, and during the adolescent stage is where that starts being built. Um, so during deployments or relocations, those contacts are diminished significantly. And maybe not so like probably 30 years ago, because now we have the media, right? That allows the opportunity for FaceTime, allow opportunity for other ways of keeping connected, but still it's not the same, right? Still changes in time, and the time to call might not be the best time because it's not consistent with the time of the place where you want to call and details like that. So we have a mechanism that will facilitate maintaining some of those support systems, but still there's other logistics that might prevent the people from maintaining those support systems the way they were before. Um, and then there's the challenge. What do I do? I'm feeling that I need some support, but I feel that I don't have that support system that I used to have. Identity struggles is another challenge that might increase mental health concerns. And the reason why I'm being careful not to say mental health diagnosis is because I am going to elaborate on that. There, we don't need to have a diagnosis to be struggling with some mental health issues. We already know that mental health issues are increasing significantly across the nation. COVID increased those symptomatology, and people can continue to have keep going in their life, not with a clinical diagnosis of mental health, but feeling low, feeling with lack of motivation to do things, feeling like with desires of staying in bed, or overeating, etc. And those are symptoms that are consistent with depression. But the question is, they might never get into a threshold of being called clinical depression, right? But it's a depression because we are feeling some of that symptomatology, even though it's not as intense, or it doesn't meet that threshold. Let me focus here on balancing personal identity with the expectations of military life. Gender roles become a big challenge because sometimes while one of the members is active in duty, the member that remains in the family household, excuse me, will have to play dual roles, right? Will have to play the role of the father or the mother, both together. Maybe when this family was intact and not involved in military service, the roles were defined differently, right? We know that the father will do A, B, B, and C, and mommy will do D, E, F, or the rest, right? So when there is a transition to the military life, those roles are challenged. That's one. And the second is when that military member comes back, those gender roles are shifted once again, right? Those are shifted once again. And once again, it could create some sense of confusion, some sense of who is going to do what. I used to do this. Uh, there might be power struggles because maybe now the person that was in charge while the military member was away um, is enjoying some of those roles that didn't have the opportunity of experience before. And maybe now, with the military member coming back, it creates a shift. And maybe there are things that are creating a sense of what am I going to do now? And sometimes these things are not spoken, right? So they're internalized and it is not spelled out in a healthy way with the spouse. And then there's the perception by others of the military spouse. So for the a statistic that we saw before, right, that there is a high percentage of spouses that are professionals and that most likely have their professional life uh, before joining the military uh, life. Now it's like the role shifts again, not necessarily by the member, but by the perception of others. Now there's a new title. You are the military spouse, right? And what does that mean? How do I continue to preserve my role that I had before as a professional, uh, or who I was, period, the way I was before, and now I'm being added this other title, the military spouse, the military wife, or the military husband. Uh, is it sitting well with me? Is it allowing me the space to still have a voice for the other parts of who I are, or who I am? Access to resources, this is one of the big challenges in creating some mental health issues, which is what are the support systems that I had before that I need to connect with now, or that I need to start building again? And sometimes that could be quite a challenge. I'm naming three that are like the big umbrellas here, but of course there's many others. But the healthcare, social services, and educations are the three basic ones that require a sense of adapting to those as soon as possible, right? And sometimes with the less knowledge or the less resources available. So the first step is where do I find the information to reach these resources? So, like I was saying before, so the mental health, the first thing is uh, because mental health depends on many external factors. How can we strengthen those external factors? The more we strengthen those, the less the risk of falling into a clinical depression, right? Or clinical diagnosis. Um, the first one is strengthen the community connections, right? So I was talking about access to resource, adaptation, acculturation. So how can I connect to my community in a way that I will then beef up those areas that I need to beef up, right? Um, and I think that that's a role that this organization is really meeting actually in trying to keep that connectedness, creating that's those information that are basic. Sometimes we have to start from the most basic concrete step to then move to the next one, right? Um, Joining local military spouse groups or international spouse groups like this, participate in family readiness programs, volunteer or engage in cultural exchange activities to foster that sense of belonging. We all know that the sense of belonging is so important. This is translated into the psychology work on attachment, right? So secure attachment, the research shows that people that have secure attachments tend to have a healthier adaptation in life and interpersonal relationships and intimate relationships. And what is a secure attachment? It's an attachment where the child, when they were growing up, they were able to receive all the emotional, psychological nurturance from the caretaker, um, the person that really took care of this child, in a very given way. This is the child that the parents never felt that they needed to they were withholding with this child, emotionally or physically. Um, and this type of attachment allows the child to start trusting the world, trusting outside, because I know that outside they're they're going to take care of me. There's going to be resources out there that will take care of me. So this is the person that will not be so anxious, so excited when they feel they need something, because they know that in one way or the other they're going to get it. And they learn also that it is a bi-directional process where I will do some aspects of it, and I'm sure that in one way or the other we will make it work. Um, so we know that this will foster a sense of belonging that is positive and will help in the process of adaptation to United States guidelines, policies, laws, health insurance plans, etc. Because the person will have deep inside a sense of comfort that no matter what the stress is now, things are going to be okay. There is another sense of belonging, and I'm not going to get into those details, but there's another attachment they call the anxious attachment. And this is the child that when growing up wasn't sure of that emotional attachment that was getting. This is the child that grows up feeling that they were getting it sometimes, but sometimes they were not getting it. Sometimes they were getting it, but it was contingent on me behaving and being good. If I didn't behave good, that love or that attention, that nurture was withdrawn from me. And the child grows up in an insecure way, thinking that no matter what I do, I don't know if I'm going to get things in the world, yes or no. I don't know that if I work hard, I still going to get it or not. Because they grow up not trusting the environment as a secure attachment will promote. And of course, then we're going to think the sense of belonging for people that come from that experience is going to be much more emotionally charged, much more insecure, right? So it's insecure attachment, and it's probably going to result in insecure sense of belonging. And I'm sure that in one way or the other, you have found people that will react like we're gonna work it out. And this is the person that probably is more team oriented. This is the person that goes to an office 2 or 3 times and still is has this tolerance to deal with it. Well, there's other people that might not feel that way. Now, I want to also stress that if you go to an office 2 or 3 times and they're giving you the cold shoulder and you are reacting in an intense way on your fifth or sixth time, um, it doesn't mean that you had an insecure attachment. I mean, there's some things that, um, push the limits of who we are as humans beings, regardless of the rearing, the way we were raised. Um, and then after that is, how do we access mental health services? Do we need to have a diagnosis to access mental health services? One of the things that I think we have done in the last years, and the last years I'm talking about decades, is address preventive mental health care. It used to be a time where people were identified when they were already in the extreme of the psychopathology, right? And the best example would be schizophrenia. And then they were institutionalized, and they will be institutionalized for years. Uh, Mental health and psychiatry and psychology moved from that model to a model of preventive recovery and community. That's when you started to see a lot of community mental health centers popping up in different places here in the United States, as opposed to just concentrating in institutions and big hospitals. And part of that is associated with the stigma. So mental health psychiatry and mental health diagnosis, they will have a very heavy duty stigma. And also coming, if we come from other countries where less work has been done in creating awareness about mental health, the stigma still stands very strongly. So part of that acculturation process that I mentioned before is somebody that's coming from a country where still is a taboo to talk about mental health. Now we are in the United States, and probably we're talking about mental health openly, but that person that's coming new is still dealing with that stigma. And that person might feel a little bit hesitant to seek those services because of that stigma that they're bringing from their culture of origin. So what I'm saying is that the people that might need some services might still be dealing with the stigma of, I don't want to be labeled like I'm crazy, which is the typical right label that might come up, or I'm cuckoo, or there's something wrong with me. Um, and one of the things that we could help families that are coming from other countries is to help them deal with that stigma, because that stigma becomes a strong barrier to access care, to access of care, right? Um, there are resources here, and some of the resources actually already are on your website. But what I would like to emphasize, and that's why I put it in red, is that sometimes because of the stigma, there are resources out there, maybe not as many resources as we would like to, but the minimal resources that are there for military families, children's, and spouses, um, it's available if the person can then recognize that the stigma is not going to stop, should not stop them from moving forward. Um, and one step for that is to talk about it, right? To talk about, I'd rather go. I mean, in my culture, the Latino culture, some people, when they're feeling emotionally distressed, they'd rather go to a church. I go to my priest, I go to my pastor, I go to as opposed to going to a hospital to say I'm having mental health issues. And why is that? It's because that's more consistent with my culture. That's more culturally accepted. It's more culturally consistent. And I could then say to people, I'm feeling this way, but and I'm discussing it with my priest, I'm discussing it with my pastor, or with my whatever the leader is for the person that is following a specific religious uh, group. So then comes developing coping mechanisms, and that's one thing that we psychologists stress a lot. So once they members can overcome that stigma, then it's almost like a curtain that lifts up, and then we could see what's there that I could utilize. And what I'm going to share with you are techniques that you're probably saying, oh, but I'm doing this, right? And believe me, there is science behind each one of them that shows that it helps in that process of unwinding, bringing some of those feelings out. Practice of mindfulness, right? Coming from Eastern philosophies. But now there are research that shows that mindfulness helps people to relax, helps people to organize thoughts. Sometimes when we get very overwhelmed, our thoughts become disorganized, right? And it's like we feel a bombardment of things in our mind, and that could cause stress, anxiety, and eventually feeling depressed because feeling like I don't know what to do. I'm feeling useless here. So the mindfulness helps in that process. It helps us to become more aware, right? It's what we call self-awareness. Become more aware. My mind is pretty heavy right now. I need to set some time for me. I have to push back from this and try to do something else. Breathing techniques is very helpful as well. Journaling is important because not everybody likes to talk to people about their problems. Some people like to keep it to their own. So if you are one of those people, then journaling it, you're not talking to anybody, but you're still releasing some of that in some way, right? You're releasing some of those feelings out. And then reading that journal will help you in organizing thoughts or priorities, um, uh, in terms of the demands that it impose on you as a spouse of a military member. And of course, you have heard this before, physical activities, exercise, walking, jogging, are already shown that are very positive in reducing the stress. Learn stress relief techniques tailored to cultural preferences. So this, I like to highlight this because, not first of all, not everybody's used to going to a gym, and be there with different people that you don't know. Although eventually you will make friends with people, but if that's your personality, but not everybody. Would like to depend on that as the physical activity. So, what are things that are consistent with my culture that give me pleasure, give me that sense of spending time with myself, uh, and re-energizing to then be able to help other people in my family. And
Dinelia, are you still there? Dr. Rosa?